This is Johnny with Tiger Bomb MMA, and tonight I'm going to be going over UFC Fight Night, Holm versus Viera, giving you my thoughts, predictions, maybe parlays. Could not remember Viera's name, mainly because when I first thought about this fight card, I'm like, fuck, it's a women's MMA main event. Going through the fight card again, I'm like, oh shit, there's some bangers on here, so I'm not too disappointed. A couple fights I'm actually excited to watch and to talk about. But before I begin that, I'm going to go over what happened last night, which was Blachowicz versus Rakic. Probably put a link below if you want to skip this, my initial thoughts, but you might want to hear it. But we'll start off with the bout between the greatest American wrestler of all time, Nick Maximov versus Andre Petroski. I know some people are happy that Maximov lost. I'm one of these guys that I was never really sold on Maximov, and the time I gave him a chance, I'm like, you know what? This might be a favorable matchup for him, knowing that Petroski kind of gasses out. If it's mostly grappling, there's a chance, Nate Diaz in his corner, Cesar Gracie for Maximov. Motherfucker gets submitted in the first round by, was it Anaconda or Darce choke? Damn. So things to note, Petroski, I'm still like not sold on him really because as he mentioned in his interview that he primarily had some short notice bouts, caused his gas tank to have issues. I don't know, man. Like he's getting better, but if he can really round himself out, fix those cardio issues, if that's true that he's just had issues with cardio because of short notice bouts, he might be a problem. But Maximov, I know I was happy to see him lose, but my dumbass put him as in a parlay, not directly. Thought I was going to go over 1.5. That asshole ended up submitting in the first, so it is what it is. Next bout, Candelario versus Taira. You know what? I gave a shot to Candelario because I thought he was tough enough to handle Taira. I thought he was going to push the pace more, strike more. He seemed a bit lost. I think maybe the weight cut really fucked him up. Taira, I mean, he looked dominant. He was very good with the scrambles. I mean, the back control that he had on Carlos Candelario was impressive. He was very impressive, just not like, oh my God, this guy's going to be champion. And I know he's going to be eating a ton of In-N-Out. For those of you who haven't had In-N-Out, I would say it's a good 8 out of 10. I'm an LA boy, so I love In-N-Out, but it's not like, I got to say Whataburger is probably better than that. But props to both guys. Candelario showed his toughness. He was a dog. Good for him. Taira, I'm excited to see what they give him next. He undefeated prospect, but I'm not too sold on him yet, but he looked promising. Angela Hill looked like she reverted in skill set against Viana Jandiroba. I thought she was going to produce enough takedown defense to really edge out this fight, keep it on the feet, knee Jandiroba in the body. It was unimpressive from both ladies, but Angela Hill looked like she's ready for retirement. Angela over the hill, retirement Angela Hill. It was God, man. I'm like, I can't believe I put money on Angela Hill because I got tempted by the underdog play. I'm like, you know what? She stuffed takedowns from, some of the best women in the division at the time. And I'm like 38 or not, or however old she is, Jandiroba isn't all that great. It is what it is, man. Like Jandiroba couldn't finish Angela Hill. That's one thing. But dear God, Angela Hill, depressing. Yeah, I was disappointed in myself for putting money on her. Because of that, I actually put money on the next fight, Michael Johnson versus Alan Patrick. I put money on Michael Johnson. I'm like, please, God, let Manny Pacquiao come back. And then there was glimpses of that guy. I'm like, oh, shit, look at him throw them hands. And he would disappear for a little bit. I'm like, fuck, it is what it is. I lost my money. And then in the second round, he knocks out Patrick. Just glimpses of the greatness. We know what's going to happen next, right? Undefeated streak. He's going to knock out Michael Chandler, and then he's going to fight Charles Oliveira for the belt, and he's going to be the undisputed champ of the world, Michael the Menace Johnson. It's going to be fabulous. I said fabulous, yes. But yeah, it's good to see him back on the win streak, or just to get a win, period, because them hands are fantastic. It's just the mental side of it. So if he can continue fighting like that, like the sprawls that he had against Patrick were like, damn, Michael, where you been at? But yeah, good for him. Got a little bit of my money back. Next bout. I'm not going to talk about the controversy between Araujo and Angela Lee, what the corner said. Like, I'm not into that shit. I'm not going to talk about it. But Viviane Araujo got me my plus money, baby. I put a couple units on her because she was plus money, like plus 100 when I took her. And she dominated. Like, just because she lost to Chookagian doesn't mean she's going to lose to another blonde fighter in Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee, you know, she showed glimpses of greatness, right? Like, had she fought anyone else that night, she probably would have stopped them. But Vivi Araujo, that lesbian power with that beautiful curly hair, just took it to her, dominated her on the ground, like dominated her on the ground. Like, you forget that she's a BJJ black belt. And yeah, she looked fantastic. Her striking looked great. You know, she got stung a little bit in the first round, but it is what it is. Andrea Lee, she's a fighter, though. Give her props. I mean, she couldn't even, I think I overheard her in her corner, not that, but I overheard her talking to her corner about how she was like wobbly and dizzy going into the third, and she still seemingly produced good work there. But moving on to the next bout, Alan Nascimento defeats Jake Hadley. I picked Nascimento mainly because, you know, he trains with Charles, and he was impressive. He wasn't like, oh my God, he's going to be a world beater. I was honestly more impressed with Jake Hadley in his defeat. I know that sounds stupid as fuck because he lost, but he needs to polish up a couple things. Like his ground game was impressive. Like, I was thoroughly impressed, even though he lost, just because the ground game looked good. The things that didn't look good were his fight IQ, and that's pretty much it. His fight IQ was pretty shit. Like, he continuously moved forward and really didn't do much. He didn't go for his own takedowns into the third round. He kept getting reversed. He kept just putting himself in bad spots. But overall, I'm like, he's still a promising prospect. Like, just because you lost to Nascimento doesn't really mean that he's, you know, garbage. I think they gave him a pretty tough out his first fight, kind of to prove where he's at. And I think he's going to look good. Nascimento, on the other hand, like, he is copying Charles to a T, right? He is going for the wild shit on the feet and then going for takedowns and then working his jiu-jitsu. And that's impressive for me. So good on both guys. I would say I was a little bit more impressed by Jake Hadley than I was Nascimento, just because I kind of knew what Nascimento had. I was still a little uncertain on Jake Hadley, but give him a little bit of polishing. Maybe he had the UFC jitters. He'll be back, and I think he'll be good. Next bout, Camacho loses to Manuel Torres. Certain fights like these where I kind of fuck myself with my overall prediction. What is it? My overall prediction record is because I take shots like this. I think, oh, Frank Camacho's got the UFC experience, fought the better guys. If he does certain things, he can win this fight. But the logical thing is, you know, Torres is going to beat the shit out of Camacho, and he did. And that's what happened. You know, I was more impressed from Torres's overall performance this fight opposed to his like UFC Dana White Contender Series debut. He didn't look very good there. He looked like, holy shit, this guy might be something special to watch. Maybe not top 10, but he can, you know, throw hands with some great lightweights. Camacho, I mean, his defense looked better, but he just was there to get hit still. And yeah, I don't think he's going to survive the UFC cuts. So moving on, this one's interesting. Caitlin Chookagian defeats Amanda Ribas. A lot of controversy on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably know what I'm thinking already. Chookagian clearly won that fight. And as any judge would tell you how you score this, fucking Dominic Cruz, man, he kept saying that control time is in certain cases more impactful than, you know, striking. Dominic Cruz can be fucking stupid sometimes. And as much as I respect Cruz, like deep down, like he's had an excellent career. He's a great fighter, great commentator. You know, he can be a prick sometimes. So that was a dumb thing to say. Control time does not equate winning a fight when you do nothing with it. It's a 50-50 stalemate. The chick that you're controlling gets up and then starts piecing you up. And let's just say Chookagian only had a minute to work. She really showed her striking in her hands in that minute. She was landing at will on Amanda Ribas, busted her up a little bit, like her nose. Being that it's women's MMA, busting up doesn't mean she's knocking her out or, you know, making her do the chicken dance. It's just she's landing significantly enough to really wipe away the 2 or 3 minutes of control time where nothing happened. And that is what won her the fight. The 29-28, round number 1, round number 2, Chookagian did more with the striking. No debate for me. Like, it's not even anything I even want to keep talking about. Davey Grant defeats Louis Smolka. And I've talked about this a lot. I love Louis Smolka. He really made me a boatload of money when I was in Vegas and I bet him against Patty Houlihan. And like you keep that with you. So you're rooting for the guy, despite the fact that I bet against him to lose by knockout, which, Davy Grant covered. It just sucks to see him keep getting knocked out. Davy Grant, there was a lot of talks about him not being a good play. He was like minus 300. But if you would have taken him by knockout or finish, it would have been like a minus 110 or so, if I remember correctly. And he looked good the first round. He slowed down the second round. Smolka took over. And then Grant just showed his veteran tactics and attacked the leg, and that's what eventually got the TKO. But yeah, man, it sucks to see Smolka lose like that. And hopefully he kind of recovers a bit. He's not going to survive the UFC cuts. He's out, and probably see him in Eagle FC. I'd like to see him in Eagle FC. Next bout, Ryan Spann defeats Ian Cutelaba. I said this in the last video. It's so obvious that Cutelaba is going to knock out Ryan Spann that in fact, it's going to go all the way around. Like, it's so obvious that Ryan Spann's actually going to finish Ian Cutelaba, and that's what happened. I kind of went with a gut feeling on that one. Sometimes they play off. But yeah, like Ryan Spann, like, he's so good, right? He's such a good fighter. It's just that sometimes he puts himself in really dumb spots and he makes mistakes. As he puts it, gets in his own way. He didn't get in his own way this time. Gets a submission, very tight guillotine over, frankly, a guy that if you put him in like a rough spot, he will quit in Cutelaba. It kind of sucks to say that because like I've seen him come back from adversity and still win a fight or go to a draw. It's just that if you do put him in a spot, I think he's willing to tap. And Ryan Spann took him to that deep water immediately. Next bout, main event, John Blachowicz defeats Alexander Rakic. Rakic would have dominated had his knee not blown out. I know some people are pissed off that I just said that and they're ready to type shit in the comment, but it is what it is, man. That really sucks to see. I had money on Rakic, just a small parlay, and initially I had one parlay that had this fight going over 1.5, and I believe one that went over 2.5, and those blew out immediately. I forgot who fucked them up. Maybe Angela Hill fucked them, and so I just put another parlay online with Rakic to be the final leg, and he there's a joke there about him being the final leg and his leg blew out. I'm not going to touch it, but yeah, it's unfortunate. I know some people kept saying that it was the leg kicks that were getting checked by Blachowicz. Maybe, I have no idea. All I know is that the leg kick that landed on Rakic was on the opposite leg, so I just think it's funny that legendary Polish power, if you kicks you in one leg, your ACL on the other leg explodes. It just sucks. It is what it is, though. Like, I'm not salty about losing money. It's just more so you don't really want to see a guy get injured like that. Just kind of freaky. But, if you play John, brilliant, because, you're taking money on a former champion at dog odds. It's pretty fucking easy money in this case. So I don't want to say it was like a smart play. It's just good on you. But let's get started with the actual card here. Holm versus Viera. First fight, we've got Elise Reed versus Sam Page Hughes. Currently, the odds have it Elise Reed minus 160. Come back on Sam Hughes is a plus 140. And doing a lightning round this entire card, I don't like this fight just because it's two women that I just leave it at that. It's two women. Sam Hughes got a pretty lucky out against Estela Nunes. I keep thinking Natella Nunes. It is what it is, like, I know some people took her as a dog and takedowns won her the fight. Very likely this could be another one of those fights, like, where she gets takedowns and she wins the fight just primarily by exploiting the weakness that is Elise Reed's takedown defense. Elise Reed's got excellent striking. I think her cardio is going to be better than Nunes. Nunes bounces around a lot. She was lighting up Sam Hughes in the first round and the first part of the second round. I think Elise Reed's a little bit more clever, being that she's fighting a girl roughly her size. What is it? Yeah, 5'5" and 5'3". Sam Hughes as an underdog, when it comes to women's MMA, I'm not going to bark at you for taking Sam Hughes, even though she's the inferior fighter, in my opinion. I don't think she's got the striking. She's just got the how I think it is. She's got a big body, and if she can take you down and she can lay on you, she can win the fight. That doesn't mean she's the better fighter. I think Elise Reed is a better fighter. I'm going to go with Elise Reed by decision, mainly by damage. And I'm thinking the same thing with like Chukagian and Hebas. Damage on the feet is going to outweigh inactivity on the bottom. So I'll go with Elise Reed by decision. So I'll take her actually on a parlay. I'm thinking about putting her on a dumbass parlay. But next bout, we've got Chase Hooper, Chase the Twink Hooper versus Felipe Colares. For this particular bout, we've got the odds showing Colares minus 160, come back on Hooper plus 140. God bless you if you take Chase Hooper. If you're going to take Chase Hooper, you don't take it by decision, just take it by submission. There's a chance he can pull a fucking submission out of his ass. He's training with Wonder Boy, so his striking, you know, it's going to look fantastic. You know what I'm saying? It's going to look better than ever. He's going to be throwing fucking side kicks that are going to be effective. That's a joke, of course, because he's not going to look like that. His striking he's just not there, man. He's still too young, and I feel like he's still immature. There are spots to take him, but this is going to be, to me, like another repeat of the Ocho Peterson fight, like just getting big brothered. Felipe Colares, he's been on a weird back and forth win-loss streak, right? But he's fighting really good guys. Chris Gutierrez, he's fighting Luke Sanders, who he gutted out a decision over. Montel Jackson, who he lost to. I can't remember. Is that the fight where Montel Jackson beat the yeah, it is. He beat the shit out of Colares, and Colares would not go anywhere. The guy is good, man. Like, he's still, 28 years old. He's going to be the smaller guy here, but he's going to be the thicker guy. On Instagram, I saw that his girlfriend wife is having a baby. He needs a win. He wants that bonus money. Babies ain't fucking cheap. So I think he's going to pull it out. I think he's going to actually defeat Chase Hooper by decision. He's going to have some hairy moments. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So is Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper's wily on the ground. I think he's more, you know, what's the word? Not necessarily wily, I just said that, but more crafty on the ground than Colares. But I think Colares has the wherewithal to just control him much better on the feet. I don't think he's going to finish Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper surprisingly has a pretty good chin, which is crazy to think. Now that I say that, he's going to get knocked the fuck out. But I'm going to go with Colares to win this one by decision. I just think he's the much better fighter right now, much more physical, big brother him. So next bout, Jonathan Martinez versus Vince Morales, taking place at bantamweight. Currently, the odds have it minus 205 for Martinez. Come back on Morales is a plus 175. Jose's not here, so I always joke around with him, and I say that when it comes to like a fight like this, we've got two Hispanic dudes fighting. We've got Vince Morales, full Mexican, and we've got Jonathan Martinez, half Salvadorian, half Mexican. That half Salvadorian part really fucking diminishes your chin, man. God damn, he's a liability, Jonathan Martinez, because he's so good technically, right? The kicks, the kickboxing, just he's so smooth in there. But if he gets cracked by something wild, by Vince Morales, it's like night out, lights out. That's always a big concern with me. But I think Jonathan Martinez takes it. I think he's a much, again, technical fighter. The price tag is a little suspect because in his last fight against Alejandro Turbo Perez cracked him. And that like gave me a heart attack, right? I'm with my fucking girlfriend. Yeah, I have a girlfriend. And we're getting coffee and I'm watching the fights because I made a miscalculation where I usually do shit before the fight start. Fight started at 3 o'clock. I'm like, motherfucker. So I'm watching the fights and I see this asshole getting dropped as I'm on the freeway. I'm like, motherfucker. So that's always a big concern. I mean, you can use him as a parlay piece because I still think he's a much better fighter than Morales, but Morales is a tough guy. He's a dog. If he catches you, he can hurt you, and that's my biggest fear, but I'll still go with Martinez. I'm always going to go with the technical fighter. My thought process as of late has been that if I'm banking on a knockout, just because the guy's got a weak chin or whatever, even though he's the more technical fighter, like, I can't risk that anymore. I can't be risking like, oh, this guy's going to knock him out in the last minute of the last round, like some Rosenstrike versus Overeem shit. Like, I don't want to be risking that anymore. Although I did bet that and it cashed, I was like this close, fucking this close to ripping up that ticket because I didn't think it was going to cash. But Martinez is the play for me. Next bout, Omar Morales, another Morales versus Uros Medic. With this fight, I was interested. I'm like, for whatever reason, I completely forgot that Medic was a thing, like the whole hype train of Earl's Medic, where Joe Rogan's talking about how he's so fucking great. But currently the odds have it in favor of Morales minus 150. Comeback on Medic is a plus 130. Medic is training at King's MMA. So that's really good for him to be training there. You know, he's a long striker. He's 6'1", 71-inch reach. He's going to have the leg reach advantage. Apparently not the arm reach. He's got a 3-inch reach disadvantage against the shorter guy, Venezuelan fighter Omar Morales. Omar's 36. He's fucking jacked. I'm excited to see the weigh-ins and the face-offs between these two, because if it's true that Eros Medic has a significant height advantage over Morales, I think I'm going to take him actually on a bet as an underdog plus 130. I think he can do this. I think he'll do a very similar game plan as to what Giga Chikadze did, just kind of be on the outside, be the more effective striker. Omar Morales, he's good. It's just that he's getting up in age, and I think this is a spot where he actually gets probably dropped, rocked, and as long as Eros Medic keeps his composure, doesn't go fucking full retard, I think he can actually edge this one out. He could even get a finish, but I'm going to go with Medic by decision. I like him as an underdog. I'm going to hold off to see where the line moves. If it starts moving the other way, I might just take him as a play, but I think I like Medic in this situation. Losing to Jalen Turner the way he did it's not a like red flag for me. As we've seen, Jalen Turner is a bad motherfucker, and I just think he needed a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more training, and I think he's going to get rounded out very well at King's MMA. So I'll go with Medic to win this one by a decision. Next bout, we've got Porker Porterhouse versus God King Haiton Almeida. I think the nicknames already give it away. God King Almeida, he's looked spectacular, right? I don't care if he came in and fought Danilo Marquez and fucked him up in the first round. The dude might be the real deal. And currently the odds, let me just make sure my eyes do not deceive me. He is a minus 800 against Parker Porter. Parker comes back at a plus 500. Now, value boys, if you will, is there value on Parker Porter? I mean, he's a big guy. He's a very hefty boy. He is 6 foot tall. What? How fucking big is he? 265 pounds this boy is, against Almeida, who's normally a light heavyweight, moving up to fight Almeida. It's tempting, right? If you put a couple like $10 on him, why the hell not? I might even do that just for fun. But as we know, Almeida should win this one. The guy is what, 6'3". He's a god. He's literally built like a fucking Greek god, and we've seen his ability on the ground. He takes you down. And Parker Porter, his takedown defense, just his overall game hasn't been very impressive. Like, he's very good if he takes you down, especially guys like, what's his name, Chase Sherman, and beats you up. But when it comes to a guy like Almeida, who's very good with the grappling, I just don't see it going any other way than Almeida just destroying Parker Porter. In the slight chance that that doesn't happen, let's just say Almeida is full of himself and he's coming in injured, thinking like, yeah, I'm going to run through this fucking Parker Porter, and it doesn't happen that way. We get some resistance. You know, you got a good hedge. As for betting Almeida, under 1.5 for sure. At that point, if he doesn't cover, you might be fucked. Just that his price tag is completely out there. Like, I wouldn't even think about adding him as a parlay piece unless I like torturing myself, which I do, so I might do it. But yeah, I'll go with Almeida. I'll say, I mean, I want, of course, round number 1, TKO, ground and pounder submission is very obvious. I'm going to go submission on this one. I don't think Parker Porter is going to get not tapped out, but like pounded out. I think he's going to give up his back and he's going to give up the neck. So I'll go with Almeida, round number 1, submission, rear naked choke. Next bout. This is for whatever reason, the prelim main event. We've got Joseph Holmes, Ugly Man Joe, Joseph Holmes versus Alan Amedovski. We haven't seen Amedovski in such a long time. He is one of the few guys that got knocked out by the white Mike Tyson. His name was John Phillips. Remember that name, John Phillips? He was the guy, if you recall, when Hazmat made his debut. just ran through him, second round submission with the Doris Anaconda, I believe. And then Joseph Holmes came into the UFC against Jamie Pickett. I picked him against Pickett thinking, yeah, trains with James Krause, he's going to win. Fucking made a fool out of himself, and he is a minus 200 against Alan Amedovski. I could not really get much information on Amedovski. All I know really about him is that he's had a layoff for about 3 years. He's trained with Hamzat himself. He's been kind of floating around, and he's got some hands on him, right? He's entertaining. I kept thinking, like, I remember years ago, I was doing a breakdown when he was going to fight Hughes Song or something like that. I forgot his name. Let me make sure. Is that Chinese fighter? What is his name? And I just kind of like, whatever. Who is this guy? Why do I give a shit about him? Yazong Hu. He was going to fight Yazong Hu a couple times in 2021, and then pandemic and all that stuff. It just didn't happen. And I'm like, whatever. This guy's lost to John Phillips. Why would I really want to give a fuck about him? But just watching his fights, like his Bellator fights, he's fun to watch, right? He's a banger. He's going to go in there and fight. The fact that he actually stood there with John the Wrecking Ball Phillips, it's just, and I'll give him some props on that. Like, he's not the greatest fighter, but he's willing to entertain us. And there's a chance he can win this fight. This is one of these fights, like, don't touch it. Really, like, are you really going to trust Joseph Holmes? The thing about Joseph Holmes, he's going to have the longer reach by a significant amount, 6 inches. He's going to be much taller by about 5 inches. He's more active. So I have to, by default, pick Joseph Holmes to win this fight. And I saw on his Instagram, he's training like the clinching, you know, with the shorter guy, 5'10" for Alan Amedovski. He's going to be primed there to get plumbed and then kneed in the face. Not to say that's going to happen, but, you know, trying to wash the taste out of his mouth from his previous fight against Jamie Pickett, where he just looked so like pedestrian. He should come in here looking better. I'm not touching him though, but I'll go with Joseph Holmes to win this one. I'm going to say by decision, just because I just can't trust him. Amedovski, though, I think he's going to come out here guns a-blazing. You know, sometimes these guys who have such a long layoff, they want to make a big debut, re-debut almost, like to wipe away any of his losses. He's not won in the UFC, I don't think. Let me go back and check. It's been a while. No, he has not won in the UFC. This could be like a refresher for the fans. Like, who is this guy? He just came in and he fucking has Hamzat in his corner, or he trains with Hamzat. Like, you get that hype. As for Joseph Holmes, you know, he should win, but he should have won his last fight too. But it is what it is. But moving on, for the main card opener, we've got Eric Anders versus Jun Park. And this one, the odds are interesting because I didn't think they were going to be this wide. We've got Jun Park minus 230 versus the plus 190 for Eric Anders. And strictly, I'm going with Anders just based on that price tag and the fact that he trained at Fight Ready. I could not confirm if he's still there. I think he is. I mean, Jun Park, he's very good hands, good boxing, recently got knocked out, which is like problematic. You know what I mean? Like, that was 6 months ago against Rodriguez. He was putting it on Rodriguez. I was surprised that he ended up getting knocked out. Thank God he did, because I had money on Rodriguez. So mainly that. I'm just going with a gut feeling with Eric Anders. I mean, Eric Anders is a big boy. He's 6'1", and there's one particular reason why I'm thinking to go with Eric Anders on his Instagram. And you know, a lot of us go on Instagram to really see what's going on with these dudes, to see what they're talking, how they're talking, interviews as well. If you hear a guy talking about, like, I'm the best in the world, and fucking, what's his name, Greg Hardy, talking about he can be boxing dudes outside of the UFC, I'm like, no, man, that's a big no-no. Eric Anders did the opposite. He's like, athletes like himself, former college football players, they think that they have the athleticism to just run through guys, and you have to humble yourself. He's like, I have to be a white belt again. Like, I'm assuming this is after he got subbed by Andre Muniz, which there's no shame in that. Andre gets you in that armbar, you're fucked. And the fact that he's like humbling himself, like, yeah, I got to retrace my steps. I got to go back from the beginning and think to myself, I'm not just this great athlete. Like, I'm just a bare bones mixed martial artist, and I need to relearn how to be a great fighter. And I think that kind of mentality of being humble it's going to really benefit him in the long run, right? Because he's got the body, he's got the physique, he's got the athleticism. If he can listen to his trainers and his coaches and tweak some stuff, and I think he can do really well. I know he's getting up in age; he's 35, and if he uses that athleticism, smart game planning, I think he can actually knock out Jun Park. So I'm going to go with him by second round knockout. I think the odds are just too good for me to pass up on Eric Anders, especially fight ready Eric Anders. But yeah, Jun Park, he's very good, right? I've doubted him in the past. He's quite good. I just think that I'm betting on black on this one. Moving on, we've got Polyana Viana versus Tabitha Ricci, the fight for the boys. This one, we have the odds in favor of, let's take a look. This one's near even. We've got, let me see who has the best odds on this one. I'll go with this one. We've got Tabitha Ricci minus 120, comeback on Polyana Viana minus 110. This one I actually did quite a bit of research on because I wasn't certain who was going to win this one for real. Polyana Viana, she's the much bigger girl by a few inches. She is, what, 5'5", 67-inch reach. Tabitha Ricci, the baby shark, 5'1", 62-inch reach. Now, if I were to break it down bare bones, I think the more talented girl, the more well-rounded girl is Tabitha Ricci with her judo black belt. I believe she's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Both these ladies are. But the, I guess, more explosive technique might be Polyana Viana, better striking. It's just that it's women's MMA, man. And I was a little shocked that Tabitha Ricci was the favorite. I'm like, why is she the favorite? I would go with Viana, who's had 2 back-to-back submissions, arm bars over mid-level competition, but still, you know, looking at her record, I'm like, yeah, she's never won a decision, and she's lost to some pretty subpar competition. Hannah Cyphers, for example. So Tabitha Ricci, is there a way for her to win? Yes, absolutely. I think there is a way for her to win. This one, it comes down to if it goes to the ground, who's going to take it to the ground? Tabitha Ricci's going to take it to the ground. She's definitely going to take it to the ground. Polyana Viana is going to be comfortable striking, and she can catch Tabitha, right? It's a possibility. But Tabitha, being the smaller girl, is going to be the quicker girl. This one, it comes down to if Tabitha Ricci is comfortable enough defending the armbar and triangle attempts from Polyana Viana, she can win this one just by being heavy on top and just out-grappling Polyana Viana. I really want to see the face-offs because I want to see how much bigger Viana is than Tabitha Ricci. But on a side note, pretty damn sexy fight, am I right? Like, these two girls, I'm doing Instagram watch, and I'm trying not to, like, you know, daydream about these girls. They put it all out there. That's all I'm saying. Tabitha Ricci's got a beautiful fucking tan, man. Nice tan cheeks. And Polyana, like, go check it out. If you haven't checked out Polyana's Instagram, like, she looks like a completely different chick. Like, I'm looking at her on Tapology, and what I've seen is not what I'm seeing on Instagram. So maybe this new Aryan Polyana Viana, she's got blue contacts. But fuck it, I'm gonna go with Ricci on this one. This is literally a reach on my part, just because Polyana, like, I suspect that she's a front runner, and if it get pushed out to the later rounds, which I think Tabitha's smart enough to do, it's just that she's going to be too damn small, which concerns me. And Polyana does have some power on the feet and on her hands and her fists, so it's tough for me. Gut feeling, I'll go with Ricci. If she can just control Polyana Viana on the ground, just be smart, I think she edges out a really, really kind of sloppy decision. So I'll go with Ricci by a decision. Next bout, we've got Chidi Njokkuani versus Dusko Todorovic. This one, I mean, not much to say about it. The odds currently have it at -184. Chidi come back on Todorovic is a +155. I've got Njokkuani to win this one by a knockout. Todorovic, you know, he leaves his chin exposed too damn much. I know he's been working on that, but I think the better striker is Chidi. He's a type of guy that he's well-rounded enough that if you're forced to strike with him, he can really do some damage. I mean, he knocked out Barrio, for God's sake. You don't just do that to a guy that tough. And Dusko, he leaves himself exposed. I mean, he's got some good talent to him right now. In the picture, he looks a lot like bald-headed Dustin Poirier. But hey, yeah, Chidi and Njokkuani for me. Like, there's a chance he can lose, of course, but I just think he's going to be the much better fighter. He's going to be forced, or Dusko's going to be forced to fight Chidi's fight, and he's not going to like it. He's going to be shooting for really bad takedowns. He might get some, right? But I think Chidi's wise enough and good enough to just get back up and then cause a lot of damage to Dusko, and he'll eventually catch him. So I'll go with Chidi by a second round TKO. First round's going to be a bit rough. You know, you're going to be like, why did I bet Chidi? He fucking can't stuff a takedown. Second round's going to come out like a blaze of glory and knock him the fuck out. So I'll go with second round knockout for Chidi. Next bout, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Michel Pereira for the co-main event. This is fucking fantastic. Like, I completely forgot this fight was happening. Ponzinibbio, I know, is getting up in age. And I'm still surprised that Michel Pereira is only 28 years old. It, like, blows my mind. But currently the odds are near even, minus 115, minus 105. So minus 115 for Pereira. Come back on Ponzinibbio, minus 105. This one, for me, it's pretty easy. It's Michel Pereira's fight to lose. It's always Michel Pereira's fight to lose. Ponzinibbio's a dog. He can really do some damage on the feet, but Michel Pereira is shown to be a much smarter guy on a 4-fight winning streak. Santiago Ponzinibbio, I feel as if there's two sides to him as of late. After he came back from his, what was it? He had the issue where he couldn't maintain muscle mass. That was 3 years ago or so. Came back, he lost to Jing Liang by knockout. He knocks out, he didn't knock him out. He beats Baeza, then he loses to Jeff Neal. So there's two different Ponzinibbios, in my opinion. The guy willing to fight tooth and nail like he did against Baeza, despite him losing the first round, he came back second and third and just went ballistic. Or the guy that fought Jeff Neal, who was like, what am I going to do? Like, he was just a little tentative. Michel Pereira, despite him being kind of retarded sometimes, he's so damn good. Good cardio now. Like, he's training in Texas now. American Pereira is going to be champion one day. It's just that, is he going to do anything stupid? I don't think so. I think he's just like Charles Oliveira quitting. I think Pereira doing stupid shit is something in the past. Again, he's 28 years old, which is still flabbergasting to me. The dude looks like he's 34. Maybe that Brazilian birth certificate is lying, but I'll go with Pereira on this one. I just think he's going to be faster, younger, tougher at this point. Santiago, he's tough as shit, but you know, he's taken some damage as of late. Pereira's relatively unscathed. I mean, the worst beating he's taken is from Connolly, and that was barely anything. So I'll go with Pereira to win this one by a decision. I don't think he's going to knock out Ponzinibbio. I think it's going to be a fun fight. And you know, he was shown to recover against Andre Fiallo. Like, that first round was tough, right? Fiallo, as we've seen, he's become kind of a, I don't want to say a dark horse, but he's like, oh shit, keep notice of this guy. So for him to beat him, it's a really good win on his record. Ponzinibbio, man, very much so like Fiallo. He's got laser hands. Catches you with a fucking right hand, it's going to really do some damage. And I think Pereira's just, he's fought the better version of that in Fiallo, the much younger version in that in Fiallo. And I think he's well aware of that. Much so like how I picked Fiallo to beat Miguel Baeza, just based on, like, he's fought the best version of the movement fighter in Pereira. He should knock out this dude. I think the similar thing here. I think Pereira's fought the better version of Santiago as of now, so I'll go with him by a decision. And the main event of the evening, Holly Holm versus Caitlin Viera. Caitlin, I could not fucking remember her name, Viera, for the life of me. And there's a good reason for that, because her last fight against Miesha Tate was like fucking garbage, right? Like, it was so bad and so close that, like, I was shopping for fucking rugs, area rugs. I don't do that. I'm usually watching a fight, regardless of how bad it is. Like, if it's a main event, I'm going to watch it. If it's like a random women's MMA, I'll do dishes. But when it comes to the main event, I'm watching it, and I was like, this is awful, right? The best thing that happened was the oil check in that fight. So for this fight, we've got the odds in favor of Holly Holm minus 230. Come back on Caitlin Viera as a plus 190. And not much to really say. Holly Holm is 40 years old. championship level fighter. Caitlin Viera, she's fought and won against good competition, but her record is very spotty. Win, loss, win, loss. She's due for a loss here. This is Holly Holmes' fight to lose, right? She's fought the best of the best in that division. And at this point, despite her age, I think she's just going to dance around Caitlin Viera. Caitlin Viera, of course, can win this fight. She's going to take it to the ground or even catch Holly Holm. Holly Holm's chin isn't reliable. Would I say put Holly Holm on a parlay, like a parlay that you're intending to win? Absolutely not. Will you go with Holly Holm to win this one by a decision or possibly late TKO? You can definitely go that route. But yeah, for me, there's no real discussion on this one. Just like I couldn't remember this fight was happening because I couldn't remember Caitlin Viera's name. That's how much I want to talk about it. Just I want this to be over. Holly Holm by a decision. Caitlin Viera, like she's a good fighter, right? Black belt in jiu-jitsu and all. It's just that she hasn't really shown that level of dominance that would show me that she's going to beat Holly Holm. Holly Holm being the girl now that like she's rounding out her skill set, taking down girls like Irene Aldana, just holding her down. And all she has to do is kind of dance around Caitlin Viera. I mean, I say that now and watch Viera just completely grapple fuck Holly Holm. It's very possible. I don't care though because I'm not touching it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on this particular fight. As for parlays, let me go to my local bookie to see what's up. I'll give you some thoughts because I do have some overall like straight bets that I like, mostly underdogs. But like for example, Earl Smetic, currently my direct bookie, my actual casino has them at a plus 130, and surprisingly, they have Polyana Viana as a plus 110. Parker Porter plus 125. Eric Anders minus 165. So those are ones I'm looking forward to. Parker Porter, I'm really expecting him to go like maybe plus 500. So I'm going to take him at plus 500 if it gets there. If it's online, like mybookie.com, I might take him there. But as for possible parlays, I got to go with Michel Pereira to start off one leg. What else do we got here? I like Felipe Colares. Is there a chance he loses? Yeah, but I think he edges this one out. I like Chidi and Njokkuani. I don't want to say there's no way he loses, but I just think he's going to eventually catch Dusko. Dusko's chin is not reliable. And I think just those three. If I'm really going to put serious money, it'll be on those three guys, Felipe Colares, Chidi, and Michel Pereira. Those three currently give me plus 360. So you do the math. I like those three. But yeah, if it's underdog plays you're looking for, I really, really do think Parker Porter is like a safe, like don't fucking put your life savings on this guy. Just in case I always like to think of what the internet's going to say like on Sunday. If like, oh, we shouldn't have put all this hype on Haitan the God King Almeida, he shouldn't have fought at heavyweight. Those little fucking excuses that you can think of. Parker Porter's a big guy. We shouldn't have, blah blah blah. We shouldn't have fucking counted out the porterhouse. So I think of shit like that. And if I'm willing to risk like $20 to find out, like so be it. So I'll do that. Eric Anders, I really do think if he comes in shape, he's probably going to do some damage to Jun Young Park. That chin's been cracked before. He's the Iron Turtle, though, so we'll see. But yeah, those are my particular plays. As always, Johnny from Tiger Bomb MMA. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that good shit. And I'll leave you with this, as always. There's a fucking train. You know what the train just said? Fuck Oberg.